John 1, verses 1 and 2. John 1:1 is the believer's number one go-to verse to prove that Jesus is God. In verse 1, it says, "The Word was with God, and the Word was God." But the original language actually proves the opposite. The word God in verse 1 is not the same word. When it says the Word was with God, you have God. Then it says, and the Word was God. So you have a second God there. In the original language, when you pull up the original Greek, you will see that it is two different words being used. So here we have the original language in John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. Now, when it says, and the Word was with God, it says, ton theon, and this is the Greek writing of ton theon. And when it says, and God was the Word, we have theos. This is a different Greek word. So we have ton theon and theos. The book of John started off immediately differentiating the two uses of the word God and creating a distinct separation. All who read John 1:1 and think it is saying that Jesus is God the Father has misinterpreted that verse. They have also created a false gospel. So again, it says the Word was with God, ton theon, and the Word was God, theos. It's not the same word. If it's not the same word, you cannot say that it's saying Jesus is God. So it says the Word was with God. The word with in this phrase is not talking about a physical place. If you look up the original language, the word with means moving towards a goal. And God in this verse is ton theon, and it's referring to God the Father in heaven. And then it immediately says the Word is God. But I showed you that this one now is theos. The word theos has been used to describe might, power, magistrate, counsel. It's been used to describe the sacrificial business of the priest and as a guardian. And it's been used for something of which God is the author. So we looked at John 1:1, and we were able to see a separation being made here to distinguish that these are not the same. So theos in this instant, where it says that God was the Word, is not ton theon. So it's not the Father. I think we've made that very clear. And what's interesting is that when we look at verse 2, so we were looking at John 1:1, when we look at verse 2, it says, he was in the beginning with God. So Christ, who we know is the Word, was in the beginning with God. And we see that it reverts back to ton theon. Now, what's interesting about ton is that ton is to designate a person or thing that is the only one of its kind. That's interesting because they're not designated the word here with ton. So we have a distinction being here that the entire book of John is starting off with. That is making sure it is clear the difference between these two things. And it is making sure that it is understood that the Father, Ton Theon, is a person or a thing that there is only one of. There is only one living God. We do not worship, well, the church does, but we are not supposed to be worshiping a multiple deity system. That's pagan roots. That's your pagan roots. That's what your ancestors did. That's what they did. Whether it's Greek or Egyptian or Scandinavian, Norse or Sumatran or whatever they're called. I mean, it doesn't matter what the African, it doesn't matter where it came from. That's what the heathen do. That's what pagans do. They worship a multiple deity system. And so all the apologetics and all of those who also wanted to get new converts in the church, they continued to mingle paganism in with the church. And many Christian apologetics, they were apologetics because they were in rebellion, not wanting to give up their own God. And then they had this epiphany that Jesus was a reincarnation of their past God. So all of a sudden they became apologetics and converted and fought vehemently against, you need to convert. But there was a sadistic reason behind it. Of course, they're not aware. They think they're enlightened. They have truth. And this is still carrying on in the church today with the doctrines of men who read scriptures like this and tell you with the lusts of their heart, with their multiple deity worship, with their refusal to let go of the gods of their fathers, with them trusting in their own wisdom, they will literally shout at you in your face and say, see, pointing at this verse, look right here, this is telling you that Jesus is God. And John is an interesting book because in the beginning you have this distinction is being made. You need to know this before you read the rest of this book. And then it goes on around chapter 10. That's when Jesus mentions gods. Do you remember it was said, you are gods? Talking about them being magistrates and judges. And then later, Thomas, when he puts his finger in the wound, oh yes, you are my Lord and my God. But we know here, because of this distinction, that it's not saying that Jesus is the Father. And so we'll go ahead and pull that up right now. John 20:28. Answered Thomas and said to him, the Lord of me and the God of me. And what do we have here? We have Theos again. It's not Ton Theon. And so John was a very important book that has a lot of revelation in it that the church is just not coming to the truth on. What I find to be concerning, although not surprising since the Bible speaks that they're going to do it, is that I could literally show them the original language and they will still draw their swords against me. Their swords being their false wisdom. They will whip it out and throw it at me and reject and rebuke me and resist and deny and insults and spit names at me and vile speech, and some of it vile done politely, some of it vile literally with name calling and insults. Pretty much it for this lesson on John 1 verses 1 and 2. I just wanted to show the difference and awaken you and bring you this revelation, because John 1 verses 1 and 2 literally sets the stage for the entire book of John, which has a lot of information that the church isn't picking up on.